crashed the bus and we made money, maybe for a successful tour. I have to think about that. I'm gonna punt. I don't know. What do you think? There wasn't enough successful tours. Huh.
It's tough to think about a successful tour because
It depends on how you define it successful. Is that
Yeah.
you made money, or that you got more people on the mailing list, or?
for everything. Like I'm balancing the pros and cons of every day that I think I'm away from my job, I think about like the $11 I lose that day, and like I think about how hard it is to be on tour, and I think about like is this viable? Does this make sense? Is this purposeful? And I'm lucky to have done some that made sense, and I've done too many that don't make any sense. So, I mean, you just have to figure it out band to band, situation to situation, to what makes sense for you. What's worked for the epilogues?
I could go.
assume nothing.
Yeah, I could go on about what hasn't worked. I'm with both of them. I think there's been a lot more tours that haven't worked than there have been that have worked, but there has been a handful that have worked. And most of the time, I personally would judge that off of fan turnaround, new fans, new people that know about the band, new people that have signed up for our email list, new people that are following the band that weren't before. I would judge that as a successful tour more so than what money we came back with, because we've had tours where we came back with a lot more money than we left with and no fan turnaround whatsoever, and I would call that a fail. Like, that's just, you're out there making money but you're not enjoying it. It's the same as working a job that you don't like.
Sorry, you totally lost me at you made money.
Yeah. I mean, it's rare. It's really rare. But yeah, I think I would base it off that. And as far looking back on those tours, it's funny, like most of those tours that I would call a success were probably support tours that were out in support of a larger band, a national headliner. We've had a handful that I would call a success as well as headliners ourselves, but I think mostly it was opening up for other bands.
One time I went to Nebraska.
I'm sorry.
That could have been successful.
Played in this town with like 30 people in it. It was a 2-night stint. It was really awesome. No, I've never actually been on a big tour. I just have the perspective of seeing all these bands coming through, losing money on their tours at my club. So that's where my perspective is from. So I've learned enough from that to know not to go on tour.
What's a successful night at your place? Like what makes that happen? Just out of curiosity, as another band at your place.
Successful for a band or just for the
in
club?
general successful, yeah. I mean, for both.
Are you talking dollars or?
Is it dollars?
Well, I think for band purposes, it's people showing up and actually watching the show, whether or not, like he said, whether or not you're making money or not, as long as you're entertaining people, like that's what it's about, and making money on top of that is awesome. But I think a successful tour, like he said, is growing a fan base, entertaining people, and next time you come through town, they're gonna come check you out.
Cool, totally.
Just to speak to touring, I guess you said what is success as far as like making money or building fans. I had the unfortunate experience of being able to build over a summer on a great tour 30,000 MySpace fans. 30,000.
What's a MySpace?
Exactly. So at the time it was awesome, and instead of pushing like our email list and capturing all those emails and pushing all that, all we talked about was myspace.com/this. So we built this huge audience that we earned and we built and we fought for, and then it fell apart, and then we had nothing. So if anything I learned from the greatest tour ever was to just capture those emails and like own those contacts and try to be as close as you can without a third party. And I think Facebook is doing that now, where everyone's talking about building your likes and building your Facebook page. It's not about that, because that's going to fall one day too. So anything you can do to get an email list and offer something other than what you can offer on Facebook. I mean, build it, it's important. But on Facebook, push your email list and push that connection, because you put someone between you and them, you might lose them one day. And That's it.
And that's one of the issues in the industry is just about, I mean, one of the battles about Ticketmaster versus Access or whatever is about who owns that data. Because when someone's selling your tickets online, they're getting that email address and that zip code, and you want that data. Because that's what it's all about, is having, having that access to that information.
I was just gonna say, what my question is based on exactly that before you guys even went into it, because I keep on getting an email from this band and I'm like, I know I like them, but I can't remember them. How, as a band, do you, instead of just having their email and you're this band sending this person this email, how do you really capture them? Like, how do you, what have you found to be, because if you don't keep them on track and all they remember you is like, I was a little drunk, I signed up on an email list, I got a sticker, you know what I'm saying? I'm just putting that out there.
It's a huge question. I think there's a lot that goes into it, from the initial introduction between you and that band.
Right, the
it's
face-to-face.
the music, well, even just the music and the show that you put on. I think it's important to have a show that differentiates itself from other shows, rather than just a band playing on a stage at a bar that they happen to wander into. What's going to make them remember you? And that's first and foremost your music and your stage show. Past that, I think there's a lot more that you can do. Capturing their email is huge. It's what companies are fighting over right now. Huge billion-dollar companies are fighting over data, and that's what you're out there trying to get as well. It's more personal for us, but you're also trying to get their email, their data, things like that. And then just a personal interaction, especially at the level that I think I can say pretty safely we're all at in this room. You shouldn't be hanging out in the green room all night backstage while someone else captures his emails. Right, well, they'll travel with you.
They do try.
But just personal interaction with people. And that's part of, I also think, the beauty of tour. That's one of the reasons I actually enjoy touring, is meeting the people, meeting new people. And it's not always good people, but meeting new people and new types of people. So I don't know, I think there's a lot to be said. It's a process. I don't think it's one particular answer to that question. I think it's just the entire interaction and differentiating yourself from others. Something that, like, I keep harping this point, but something that's going to differentiate you from the crowd. Simple things. We've probably beaten this to death with our band, but the light show. We have our own light show that we use, and it's.
I was nodding. Yes, it's
Oh,
cool.
sorry,
I wasn't
sorry,
nodding
no,
beating
it's
to
fine.
death. That was cool. It's a good thing that you guys do. That's a good one.
Anything you could do that differentiates yourself. I don't know, like there's all sorts of opportunities. Like one of the bands that we toured with, I Hate Kate, which is now Darling Thieves, the frontman used to be in Zebrahead. Like their thing is that their frontman, Justin Mariota, is just really good at stage banter. He'll like pull people up on stage and interact with them, but like you leave the show remembering that almost more than you remember the band, which is, I mean, but it's something that sticks in your mind. You're going to remember that, you know? So I think that's important.
And you have to make sure it's something that you as a band is going to love too. I've seen a lot of bands come through, and both you guys, Post Paradise and you guys have a great light show, and it's really tight and all together, but I've seen a lot of bands come through, try to do the light thing. It's a train wreck, and the band doesn't know what to do because their lights aren't working.
Right.
So it's like, they can't perform because their lights aren't working, and it's like, so you got to make sure that thing that you do is like something you want to do,
And it
do well,
enhances the performance. Not,
Right.
Yeah, that's a very
Not take
valid
away.
point. That's a really valid point.
I also like to think that there's like two things that are very important. One, especially with like music being able to be produced so easily right now, that if you have a live situation, just to own your instrument, own your craft, own your voice, own that stage. It's your chance to be better than the recording. And if anything, people are coming out because they're familiar with your songs. And then there's the curveball. It's something that's just a little bit different than what's on the recording. Because so many people, especially coming from Chicago, where you can go to Ravinia and you never see the band because you're out back on the lawn. But then there's a curveball that comes, that you're no longer listening to a CD. You're listening to a live performance that's unique. And I think if you could find a different curveball for every show or every other show, and you have so much drive time while you're touring or anything else, that you come up with a little different aspect to that song to make it unique for that night. I think that's what people hold on to and remember. And if you're not as fortunate to have the lights or something else, I think own your song, own your craft, and then throw in a curveball to make it a little bit unique for that person, because they won't forget something that sounds good.
I was in a band and we were opening as a full band for the tallest man on earth, and he's a single guy that's like 5 feet tall, and he's the tallest man on earth, and he owned the stage. It was unbelievable how good that guy was, because he was a singer-songwriter and he just knew what he was doing, and he performed perfectly, and he performed every night. So just whoever the band is, whatever your thing is, to do that thing purposefully. So a singer-songwriter, I saw like Elliott Smith in a coffee shop and was mesmerized because the songs were so good, and I saw Tallest Man on Earth because he like walked back and forth on the Bluebird stage and just like owned it and looked at everyone in the crowd. And I saw Cat Power like walk away from the stage, and I was like, I'll never forget that. Like whatever that is, you know. But like whatever your thing is, to do your thing and to be comfortable in that thing. I'm in a band that the light show would never work, so we're not gonna do a light show. But like we engage with the audience very personally, and that's a thing that any singer-songwriter can do, any band can do. It's just whatever your thing is. And to never play a room that doesn't match what you do, to never open for someone that doesn't make any sense, you know. Ask the Flowbots about opening for Metallica. It was like a disaster, ton and ton. Like it's just, you have to find the thing that makes sense for you in every situation, every band. So.
Yeah, as a singer-songwriter, you got your work cut out for you, because a band, you're watching a band and you get tired of looking at the guitar player, you can look at the bass player, check out what the drummer's doing. But if you're out there by yourself, then, like you said, you gotta engage the crowd, and you gotta totally nail your performance, because otherwise people just go get a drink, because they got nothing else to look at, So my advice, I always feel bad for singer-songwriters, because it's tough up there by yourself,
Totally.
But But I tell you what, like every once in a while, one comes through and there's something different about them. They're more emotional about their song, and they can totally engage the crowd, and it's pretty awesome.
I don't know if that's different singer-songwriter to singer-songwriter. I think that's any artist that owns the thing they're doing.
Right.
Like Tallest Man on Earth is just playing guitar.
Yeah.
But he engages the crowd 100%.
Yeah.
And more than bands I've seen with, full orchestras, are just so boring.
Right.
But they didn't engage. So.
Exactly.
Well, I think you actually have an opportunity. I mean, so what everyone's saying obviously is it's the same thing. Know your craft, engage people, be unique, do something different. But I think it's really hard being a singer-songwriter, but at the same token, you have the opportunity because you get to control everything.
Yeah.
And you get to choose how it's going to go and have that opportunity because everybody's looking at you the whole time. Right. And you get to guide every single, so whether it is certainly you see singer-songwriters who it is their stage manner, it is that interaction. It's not just the music. There's the story behind each song. It's what goes on in between the songs. I mean, you get to make your own show, and I think while part of it is while you're in a really tough spot, 'cause it's all on you, by the same token, you get to control it and make it your own.
So a singer-songwriter, any band, any light show, any quiet thing, it's just, this is what I'm gonna do. This is where I am. And it better be the right room and the right crowd and the right atmosphere.
But too, you got to be prepared for not the right room, because we're talking about going on tour. It's like a lot of times you're going to a place you never been before. You find out you're on this backstage at this restaurant.
If
And
you just
everybody's
found
there
out,
just trying
if
to
you just
digest
found
their
out
food.
the night you got there, then you fucked up.
Yeah. That's right.
Don't play the back room of the restaurant. Just don't do it.
Right.
There's a better room in town, or skip that room and go someplace else.
Yeah.
Taking every show that's available is a disaster. Do your homework. Find out where you're
Agreed.
playing and what you're doing.
Don't
Yeah.
play a room that doesn't fit you. That's a
Totally.
huge.
Yeah, and advancing your shows. I mean, I don't know if that's on the agenda here, but advancing shows is really important, and it's one of those things. It's one of the business side of things that isn't fun, you know. But it's so crucial to making your show a success, your tour a success, or at least make sure you get fed. You know, I mean, how much does it suck when you show up and you think you're going to get a buyout or you're going to food, and they're like, no, that's not. You know,
Or just know you're not.
Right,
Like,
exactly. I mean, the thing is, if you didn't
the
advance it, you're not.
The expectation for every show.
I mean,
You
just
should
if you
know that
advance it,
before
you'll
you
know.
Like that's
Right.
all. Like if I show up Cody's and I'm like, you guys owe me $7,000 in meals.
Where's
like,
my food buyout?
What?
And I'm like, where's your contract? Let me show you where.
We've done it at the High Dive where bands have come in and been like, hey, we're ready for our buyouts.
Yeah,
Who the fuck are you?
I get it all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
advancing
mean,
shows
yeah.
is huge.
With the expectation of, hey, you guys, we're going to give a door deal as much as possible to you, but there's no meals.
Yeah.
Or if I drove 10 hours and got to town and didn't know whether I was going to get fed or not, or didn't know what the stage was going to look like,
Right.
or didn't know if there's a backline or not, like that's all stuff you can know
Yeah.
going into a town.
And that's the biggest thing, I think. Like, I've got all these notes here in this book, and pretty much all of them deal with.
This is all about me.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Don't deal with Ben. No, all of this deals with. None of it deals with actually being on tour. All of it deals with the prep leading up to tour, which I think is huge. It's like you're setting how this entire tour is going to go. There's a lot of prep that goes into it. There's a lot of thought work, and there's a lot of detail-oriented things that need to be hammered out. And I think that you can't do too little before you go on tour. Like or you can't do too much. Sorry.
That makes more sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get it. I
Yeah.
totally get it.
I feel like I'm doing the same route my entire life. You know? No, I do. Like, I think that I feel like it's yes. I like this last year. My band, for example, did the West Coast route probably 4 or 5 times, which is too much to do in a year.
No,
But
it's
at
not.
the same
It's
time, anyone will tell you that it's too much, except for us up here, because we're the ones that actually know what we're talking about. No, but really, like it was our plan was to go in and hit these markets over and over again to familiarize the market with us, because that's what was successful for us in Denver. We played a lot, and then we backed off of it, and people became really hungry to see our shows, and we started doing that. So we figured, why can't we do this in other cities? Why can't we hit them over and over again, get people familiar? As long as we're increasing our numbers every time, doing it better each time.
Where would you suggest that, say, someone who's just starting out doing that in Colorado had an advantage of being in Colorado because there's so many different markets? Where would you suggest?
If you're in Fort Collins, I'd say go play Denver. First of all, I'd say before you even go anywhere, develop Fort Collins. Why not
And then
continue?
Colorado, and then
Yeah, exactly. Why not continue to grow your crowd in Fort Collins and then step out to Denver and grow your crowd in Denver?
Well, the
Yeah.
other is
Be
like,
like,
that's the
I'm
problem.
killing it in Fort Collins. Let's go to New York.
Well, the thing is, you can kill it in Colorado. You can do the Front Range and the mountain towns, but then we talk about this all the time. We talked about as part of planning the Denver Music Summit, and just kind of Colorado in general. Where the fuck do you go next? Right? It's like Utah. That rocks. Like, you know, so you can go all the way to the West Coast or all the way to the Midwest. Hopefully, maybe you've got, you know, I know some bands that go to the Midwest because they're from there or something. Or they've got, you know, they went to college in California or something. But that is a hard part of it. Is
Yeah.
like is doing that route and getting really good at it and building in Colorado, but then knowing what's going to happen next.
well, we talked about this a little bit, like the every con is a pro thing. Is like it's really hard to get anywhere in town, but it's really easy to get really good in town. And by town, I mean the Front Range.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you should play the Springs and Boulder, Denver, Fort Collins, Buena Vista, Salida, Aspen, Vail. Like, there are so many places to play without even trying.
And that could be all within a 3 to 6 month period.
Yeah.
So if you're booking all that and you're building those individual towns, you just have groundwork for what you need to do
Yeah.
to go a little bit further out.
Why are you going on tour in the first place? Have you developed your market? Have you developed the markets around you? what's making you want to go on tour? Are you supporting an album? Are you supporting radio activity that you're getting? Are you supporting like distribution insights? Like, do you have a concentrated market where you're getting a lot of sales, a lot of concentrated sales in, say, Salt Lake City or wherever? What is your reason for going out? And that'll answer all your questions to where do you go? Do you have family or friends or some startup base in a particular market that you want to hit? Do you have a lot of people on the West Coast buying your CDs? Do you have whatever that reason is? That's why you go on tour. That you don't just go out to tour. Like, I think that's the biggest. That's that's a huge.
I mean,
yeah.
just touring for the sake of touring doesn't make anybody happy.
Yeah.
But it's really so what's the worst and best thing about like the Front Range? It's really easy to be the best band in town. Like, it's really easy because there's only 10 of us that can draw anywhere in any range. So no one can draw in Fort Collins. But if you're a band from Fort Collins, you can bring 10 people out. Like, you have an advantage somewhere. So find out who plays in Seattle that, you know, would like to tour in Fort Collins, and trade a show. Do a sister city thing. Be like, hey, you guys sound similar. You're playing the places we play. You listen to the things that we listen to.
I've heard this band swap.
I know.
Yeah. but it doesn't have to be so, you know, like
Yeah, it
formal.
doesn't have to be
It's just,
institutional, right.
you know, this is a thing you just talk to a band about.
And it happens on the regular. That's a big thing that we're.
And yeah, don't expect it 1-to-1, but expect it like, I'm going to be a welcoming band in my town. I'm going to be a you know, the diplomat of my town, of Denver, or Fort Collins, or wherever.
There's a lot of things. Number one is what dude over there is saying. Advance your shows. Like, oh, here it is. Everybody's got one of these, right? Send this to every club you're going to, and make sure that the production manager has a heads up. You know, especially if you're a bigger band. You know, I don't know how many times a band has come through and then they're like, oh, by the way, I've got a 6-piece horn section
Right.
that just rolled in and some percussion and all this, and I have no heads up as a production manager. You just destroyed my mood. You know, and I mean, everybody out there knows how many asshole sound guys there are, and there's like one good sound guy out of a dozen. So like, basically, just be professional. Show up on time. Make sure the production manager has a heads up. You know, even if like the booking guy never puts you in contact with the production manager, try to get into contact with them.
Right, it's your job, not theirs.
Right.
And be like, hey, heads up, here's what we have. Just making sure you've got 12 vocal mics. You know. And, you know, just make sure that you're on the same page with the production manager. And that's huge just right off the bat, because like clubs will be like, oh, here comes a professional band.
Yeah,
You
if you want to blow clubs' minds, if you want to blow like a sound guy's mind, just like be professional.
Yeah.
Remember
Like,
their
and they'll
names.
just be like, that's shock. Yeah.
I don't even mind that. Like the sound guy thing, because I mean, I don't remember anybody's name ever. Like sometimes I'm writing on my hand and
Yeah. But be way ahead of the game. Just be professional.
Yeah.
Like, figure out what's on the load in and then be at that load in.
and
Figure out
then
the sound check
when you
be
get
the sound
there,
check. Yeah.
get to work. You know, start putting stuff on stage, start setting up.
Honestly, have a contract and have it signed. And honestly, like when I worked with when I my management agency, I shared office space with a booking agency, and there was one person at that agency, and their only job was all day to call venues and say, "Where's the contract? Where's the contract? Where's the contract? It has to be signed." Right? And that's a pain in the ass, especially at this level. You're dealing with talent buyers who they work their day job till 5 o'clock, then they show up. You know. And you gotta try and catch them. They're a pain in the ass, and not everybody is on the same page or feel what Ben's just saying about, well, we're all in this together. Not everybody acts that way, but you have to have a contract, because when something Ben and I were talking about this on the drive up, because my personal kind of philosophy on contracts is, a contract tells a story. Right? The contract tells you when you have to show up, when you're going to play, how much you're going to get paid, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, a contract should be put in a file and never looked at again. Because if everything goes fine, if you show up, you play, and you get paid, great. Don't even look at the contract. I get the phone call when you don't get paid, or when they screw you on the set time, or when you don't get paid, right? And every time, as soon as I get that call or that email from one of my clients, it says, we didn't get paid. Okay, where's the contract? Right? Now, I will tell you, there is something called an implied contract. Okay, so an implied contract is, I sent you a contract, we negotiated back and forth, we said via email, yeah, that's cool, okay, that's great, okay. Well, even if it wasn't physically signed, you can claim an implied contract. The reality is you have to go to court to prove it. And for most of us at this point, we're not, this isn't a $100,000 gig, right? We're not gonna go pay a lawyer 10 grand to go litigate it. So really, it's about getting it signed. The things that should be in there are the things that it's a pretty simple, compared to a 40-page record deal or something, a performance agreement is pretty straightforward, right? Because it has all those basics, usually on the front and on the back, or on the second sheet, it's gonna have all those terms, and what we call the standard terms and conditions, right? And those, again, we want to think about things we're gonna use the contract for, the cancellation policy, right? The deposit, right? So think about what could go wrong. What happens when, one of my clients showed up at the gig, they'd gotten their deposit, they had a signed contract, they showed up at the gig, power went out. Whole town, power's out. Okay, well, they were there, they were ready to play, they didn't play, then you brought in no money, what the hell happens? You should be able to look at the contract and know. Right, so that's what you want to think about, all these things, and that's what goes in the contract. By the way, I was just having lunch with some other lawyers today, and they're like, God, every client comes to me, they download a contract off the internet, and they're fucking terrible. And unfortunately, most of the contracts you find on the internet, fucking terrible. It just is, do your best. I definitely help out whenever I can. I'm not sure how SpokesBUZZ helps you out with this, but avoid kind of cookie cutter contracts, avoid things that just, this seems like it'll fit. If you don't know what it means, ask somebody, right? Because a contract, if you don't know what it means in there, it may not be what you want to say. I'd ask for a deposit for everything. I guess I'll definitely ask you if you won't do deposits. Because I always ask for them. Absolutely.
The thing is, you are probably dealing with shows that are usually paying more than what a lot of us are getting paid. Because,
that's the problem.
Because they have an attorney. But that's not necessarily the case. I've seen from our original booking agent, we were booked by a company called ICM that books everyone from Kanye West down. We were down, way down. But we still had the contract. And so even when we were getting a $150 guarantee, there was a deposit involved with that. But then I've also seen other booking agents do it differently, where if it's over $400, there's a deposit. If it's under $400, you just pay the band the night of. So I think it's particular to each situation, and to everyone's comfortability level. If you have a booking agent involved, if you have a lawyer involved, I think that's important.
Actually, I don't get, by the way, just to clarify, I don't get involved in negotiating splits. I don't get involved in contract administration. And I think, to your point, the thing is, yes, if it's a $200 gig and a place that only has music Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, yeah, you may not get a contract back. You may not get a deposit.
Right.
But as far as what the goal is.
Right, and
you want to be professional. Right? You want to be professional, plan like you're playing those big
And
games.
I would still say it's important to turn a contract in, even in that situation. Turn a contract in. You may not get a deposit, you may not get that, but work it out in the contract where, okay, we're not going to get a deposit, we'll get paid the night of. Or if it's a strictly door deal, you're not going to get a deposit on that either. But the contract, I completely agree. The contract thing is important to have in there. If for nothing else, you have everything listed in one place. You have the time that you need to show up. You have just all the terms. It's all plainly stated. Everyone agrees on it, and it's done with. I think that's really important.
Even just don't call it a contract. Call it an agreement,
right?
Like a written agreement. Anything that makes anyone feel comfortable.
Performance agreement.
Right.
Yeah, and just so you know, an email is a contract too. If you have a deal in the email, we're gonna pay you this. Have that. That's yeah.
It's again.
But
there's
you
your
have
implied contract.
you have an agreed
Right.
list
It's
of.
your, the problem. I mean, here's the problem. Here's the thing that I hate the most about my job. Okay, is how much it costs to make the law work for you. Okay, because the reality is, yes, you can absolutely claim under the theory, under the letter of the law that yes, we have a contract, but the chance of you going and paying a lawyer to go sue that venue to go get your payment.
To get your $300.
Exactly.
Right, right.
It's not. I mean, you can take them to small claims.
300.
small claims.
But then you have to do small claims in that venue's jurisdiction, which might be in Salt Lake City or whatever.
But it's the
You have to collect too, which is.
But the thing, but he's right to have it. You want to have as much
You
proof
want
as you
at
can.
least if you have anything, have the deal.
Have it in writing.
In writing.
It's
Yeah,
not
that
about
the
sure.
club is
suing
going to pay you so
someone.
much money.
It's about having an agreement with someone, and it's an expectation of what's going on.
Yeah, and no, if you
And-
have
and-
and if you have it anywhere, much better to have it in writing than voicemail or a text.
For
Scan
what
in
we're
time,
dealing
text.
with, it's a conversation. I don't want any surprises. When I'm on tour with my band and I go to a town, I know exactly what to expect. And that contract helps me with load-in
And the other thing
times.
is, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The
No,
other
no,
thing is you can walk in. You can walk in when you show up,
Yeah.
and whether you're fighting with a sound guy about sound check or not. When you show up, when you walk in, you didn't sign this yet.
Right.
Get it signed when you walk in.
Or
Not too
when-
late. It's before you went on stage,
Right.
and you're still going to get paid.
The problem is we don't have much control of that thing. Like, there's not much, you don't gain much by walking out on something because your contract isn't signed at this
Oh no,
level.
I would never. No.
So
You don't
what,
walk
so
out and
what
say,
I'm
"Haven't signed
saying,
it."
yeah,
Of
right.
course- No, of course not. It's not. If they say no, I won't sign it. That's a red flag.
Right,
If you're
sure.
not willing to sign it, then I would consider whether you want to go on stage.
Yeah.
Why won't you sign it?
But that contract at that point is a conversation with, I just want to talk about how this night's going to go.
Right.
I don't want to be surprised about drink tickets. Oh, there's no drink tickets? I should have known that before. Like, is there a hotel room? I should know that if there is one. Like, whatever it is, whatever your deal is professionals dealing with professionals. And that's how you make that professional, is just conversation. It's everyone working together to make a great night.
Advancing would be, for us, usually typically how we handle it is the contract's already dealt with. We're leading up to the show. I'll either call or email the advance contact on the contract that's usually given to us and advance the show, which is just want to check in with you, what time's our load-in time, just to clarify all the details with the show. It's a conversation prior to arriving about all the details that are going to happen.
Right, so do you have
Like
meals?
what-
Do you
yeah.
get drinks? Is
Right.
there a hotel room? When is load in? Is there backline?
Even if you have a contract that already spells that out, it's a conversation about that contract.
Yeah.
Because a lot of bands send me their riders at the hideout, and it's just like, oh, what an imaginary wish list.
Yeah.
Like, this will never happen. But that's what I'm
it's,
going to
it's
do.
a good idea. Even though, like, a lot of times we'll get writers and I'll be like, funny, it makes me chuckle. But the fact that they sent the writer, you might get like chips and salsa in the green room. If you have it
we
all
got some
right.
really
Yeah.
funny things.
You know?
Right.
But or a meat platter or a veggie platter. But if you don't send that writer, you're gonna get some water bottles in the green room.
But also keep in mind that that could be coming out of your pay. Also.
Right.
That like.
Well, this should be in the contract.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in the program.
Right,
But,
so yeah.
but advancing a show is, what do you want to know when you go to a show?
I'll send everybody an advance sheet that I send out to bands. Like if they haven't hit me up before a week out, I send out my own advance that says, "Hey, you should fill this out. Load-in time's gonna be at 6:30 unless you advance otherwise. Like if you want to be there at 5 because you got a huge light rig, then I need to know. Like don't call me the day of
Right?
being like, hey, can we load in at 4 o'clock? Because I'm gonna say no. I'll see you at 6:30 when
It's also a good time to make sure that the production contact has that stage plot that they request.
Right.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
I mean,
advancing
that's part of
hospitality-
advancing too. You always, stick a PDF of your stage plot and everything in your advance of like load in and state, set times and all that.
think it's always a good idea to go out as support, although the support versus buy-in conversation, which we had in depth at dinner tonight.
Oh, you call that dinner? That was
Yeah,
sweet.
I'm glad you got the bullet point.
Yeah,
Right.
support, I think absolutely. Like I said earlier, some of the best tours, probably most of the best tours that I've been on have been support tours, because you're playing to, generally, if you're going on a support also for an entire tour, the band has picked you out of a group of bands.
Right.
So you know it's going to be it's going to be fitting for the show. And generally that's the case.
And they went through all the work of booking it.
Right, they did all the booking. If it's a
You're not gonna make as much, but
right, you'll take a hit. Like for us, for example, we took a hit on guarantees, a huge hit on guarantees from what we normally get when we're out on our own. But we more than doubled what we would normally get with our guarantees on merch sales when we were out on a support tour. Because there's way more people there than there would be if it was just us. And they're excited. They're there to see one of their favorite bands, and they just hopefully saw a new band that they fell in love with. And they're there to buy your stuff.
And they're still there when your set is done. 'cause
Yeah, exactly.
they're there to see
So
that.
you have the opportunity to interact with them a lot more also. That's a really valid point. So yeah, I think support is great. Personal opinion, buy-in tours I don't think are ever worth it. I don't think you should do it. I just wouldn't
Define that.
Yeah, buy-in tour is when you essentially pay the headlining band to
play.
go out on the road with them. You're paying to play. So not only are you not getting paid,
yeah.
Right.
but you're paying them to play. I just don't see the advantage of it.
Do you know any bands who have done it?
I know lots of bands that have done it, and they haven't seen enough advantages from doing it to where I would say that's worth it.
How much does a band charge?
It depends on the
I mean,
band.
obviously it depends on the band, but like, I mean,
So we had at the
Same
High
kind of
Dive,
motivation.
Baruch Assault played the High Dive
right.
like a couple years ago, and it was like a couple $100 each night for the opener to play for Baruch Assault.
For who, Ben?
For the opener to play
Baruch
for
Assault.
Baruch Assault.
And that's cheap
Yeah.
on the buy-in side.
That, yeah, that's what I said. That's not bad.
So I mean that works for some bands. For some bands, you have to do that math and say like, if I can play
It's it's a math.
this market, but the idea that somebody paid $200 to play the High Dive is insane.
Are we paying you in January? No, I'm just
Plus, I think there's a difference between.
It's kind of like a
I
shitty
still
time
don't.
for the headline band to do.
Yeah, it's-
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, there's a headlining band that goes out with a set crowd, and they're going to expose that crowd to this opener.
Yeah.
And if that makes sense for you, to jump some, like to jump a level somewhere, that makes sense for your band.
Yeah.
It makes a lot more sense in a town like LA,
Right.
in New York, than it does in Denver.
I'll say also that there's situations that are not pay to play tours, but also pay to play just a particular night at a venue. You'll experience that a lot on, like, for example, the Sunset Strip in LA, which I'm not going to get too in depth about, but they're like, I may be a little
lot of stuff to
biased
work out.
Yeah. But like, you'll see venues that do like a pay to play scenario.
Sure.
And again, it's just one of those things you decide if it's worth it for you as a band. I haven't found that instance yet.
Actually, a lot of times, and I want to know what you guys think about this, and I know we're trying to close up, but that a lot of times I've told my clients, in general in this business, the people that are making money off you only make money if you make money. Your manager makes a percentage, your agent makes a percentage, publishers should make, when they sell, they get a percentage. And be very wary of anyone who wants you to pay up front.
Yeah.
And I found that in most of the relationships, except lawyers, of course. And, but I mean, I don't know if you guys found the same thing.
completely
But that's what I've
agree.
told a lot of my bands.
And I think it creates an environment where everyone wants to work harder. If they're going to make money off of you making money, then they're going to want you to make money. That's the end game.
This is a relationship.
Yeah.
This is the thing we all work together.
Ben's got a theme and he's sticking to it.
I know.